Okay, I'm Rachel Johnson. I did my presentation on heroin-assisted treatment, specifically asking the question of whether it's a viable treatment for heroin addiction here in the U.S. A little bit about me: I'm an animal science major with a pre-vet emphasis, graduating this spring and attending the College of Veterinary Medicine here at the U of M in the fall. Thank you. So heroin-assisted treatment is an interest of mine, but I won't have time to study it while I'm in vet school, so I thought, what better time than to do it right now. I wanted to give you guys some background on heroin addiction treatment, just so you could kind of follow along the study a little bit better. A conventional treatment of heroin addiction is methadone maintenance treatment. Methadone is a drug that's a synthetic opioid, and it can be given to patients while they're in treatment to help with symptoms of withdrawal, and also to just maintain them while they're in recovery, so it basically helps with recovery. Some more background: there is a new treatment happening in Europe. It's been happening for about 20 years. It's heroin-assisted treatment. So it's used in Germany, Spain, the Netherlands, Switzerland, and the UK. So basically it's run the same way as methadone maintenance treatment, where patients come in every day and they receive a dose of a drug, but that drug is actually pharmaceutical grade heroin. Usually it's only offered to people who have already tried methadone maintenance, the conventional treatment, and they've found that that doesn't work for them. So just so no one gets really excited, heroin is still legal in the US, and it's illegal even for treatment. So this is definitely a hypothetical situation. And my situation was, I'm a doctor at a treatment clinic, and I was asked by my boss to investigate heroin-assisted treatment in Europe. And she wanted me specifically to recommend an official stance either for or against my clinic on heroin-assisted treatment, and then whether or not the clinic should plan to offer heroin-assisted treatment if it ever becomes legal in the US. And just a heads up, from now on, heroin-assisted treatment is abbreviated to HAT in my presentation. Methadone maintenance treatment is abbreviated to MMT, just for space reasons. So my research questions: I wanted to know, does heroin-assisted treatment work? How much better does it work compared to methadone maintenance treatment, if it works better than methadone maintenance at all? And could heroin-assisted treatment theoretically work in the US? My hypothesis was that heroin-assisted treatment did work. I'd heard about it before, but I didn't think it worked better than methadone, and I really didn't know what would be the logistical obstacles to implementing it in the US. My methods: I had 11 peer-reviewed online articles. So for my research triangle, I used online articles and empirical sources, and I had one national database. My empirical sources were 2 interviews. They were both professors of addiction studies. One of them was here at the U of M, and then one of them was at Metro State University. And I had one online survey through SurveyMonkey. I got 43 respondents, and I sent it to 2 different classes. One here at the U of M, which that class didn't focus on addiction at all, and then one at Metro State University, which was completely addiction focused. So my results: I had a lot of articles. I wanted to just narrow it down to what I thought was the most important results from the articles for you guys today. There was a 2-year German study of heroin-assisted treatment and methadone maintenance treatment groups, and the heroin-assisted treatment group saw a 20% greater retention rate in long-term treatment, meaning that the patients on heroin-assisted treatment stayed in long-term treatment more than methadone maintenance treatment group did. There was a 2009 British study done, both of heroin-assisted treatment and methadone maintenance, and they actually found that those on heroin-assisted treatment, out of those on heroin-assisted treatment, 75% actually stopped using illegal heroin on the side, which is a major problem of drug addiction treatment, that people who are even on methadone maintenance will still go out and procure illegal heroin and use that along with methadone. So that was a great finding. They also found that heroin-assisted treatment reduces the average days that someone commits a criminal act from 25 days a month to 8 days a month. And that was when it was compared to methadone maintenance treatment. So for my interviews, they both kind of said the same thing, so I kind of condensed what they said for you guys. Both of them interestingly said that here in the US, no one really talks about heroin-assisted treatment much more than just to maybe mention that it's done in Europe. There is still quite a large stigma that exists against any sort of medication-based treatment for addiction. And that does include methadone. Even though methadone is widely used here in the US, there's still a large stigma against that that some people have in the field. But the interviewees said that they think that attitudes towards this are slowly changing, so that's good. So despite these 2 points, they both said that they thought heroin-assisted treatment should be offered here in the US, and they both essentially said that that's because heroin addiction is so, or heroin is so addictive that we need every tool in the toolbox to be able to fight this addiction. So for my survey results, I had 22% of my respondents were currently in addiction majors, and then 78% were in other majors. But surprisingly, 33% of my respondents had actually heard of heroin-assisted treatment, which was higher than I thought I was going to get. So that was interesting. And then I asked this question: do you think heroin-assisted treatment should be available to patients in the US? And I found that 34% said yes, 61% said maybe, and 5% said no. So all told, 95% either said yes or they said that they're open to the option of heroin-assisted treatment. So for my discussion, the articles, they talked about heroin-assisted treatment and methadone maintenance treatment, and I believe that they show that heroin-assisted treatment can be better in a couple aspects of addiction treatment in terms of retention, retaining patients in a treatment program. Heroin-assisted treatment can also reduce the illegal heroin use that patients do. And then also there was a reduction in criminal activity for patients on heroin-assisted treatment. In my interviews, the 2 big results I took away from the interviews were that heroin-assisted treatment should be offered in the US. But having said that, one big obstacle to that would be the stigma. And then my survey, I thought it was really interesting that 95% either thought that it should be offered in the US or they were just open to the idea of that. I thought it would be a lot less. So this could maybe suggest that there are changing attitudes towards heroin-assisted treatment in the US. My recommendation for my research questions, I said that yes, it works. I said that it does work better compared to methadone maintenance treatment, and we saw that in retention, illegal heroin use, and crime. And I think that it could work in the US, but there are 2 big obstacles, namely the fact that it's illegal currently and that there's a really big stigma. Logistically, though, I do think it could work. So my recommendation to my clinic is that my clinic should take a stance in favor of heroin-assisted treatment, and then if it ever does become legal in the US, my clinic should offer it to patients. So, any questions? Yeah.
This is Joanne. How long does the treatment last then? Is there a point or a period of when then you're tapered off the assisted treatment?
It can be anywhere from like 6 months to 2 years. Those were the studies that were using heroin in Europe. But in my interviews, we talked a lot about what a conventional treatment schedule would look like in the US here too, just so I could get an idea. And one of the professors said that methadone maintenance, so it would be similar to heroin-assisted treatment, they can be on it for any length of time. Some people actually choose to stay on it lifelong. And she said she considers those people to be in recovery if they're not abusing methadone, if they're using it as prescribed in order to get better. Yes?
Okay, why is it illegal? I mean,
Why?
obviously it's heroin, but they're doing it in Europe. Europe. So why is it illegal here
We
versus
did a
there?
little research into the history of this. I can't remember exactly all the dates, but up until about the 1900s, things like cocaine and heroin were actually legal in the US, and then they had a lot of problems with that. They actually had a lot of like middle class white women were getting addicted to heroin because they couldn't drink, they couldn't go to parlors and drink and that kind of thing, so they'd take heroin. It was like in tinctures, it was like a cough syrup, and they'd get addicted to it, and that was part of the reason why they just saw this huge rise in people addicted to heroin, and they passed a law making like cocaine and heroin illegal.
But not in Europe.
Not in Europe. There are I mentioned I think like 5 different countries that did it, and there are more countries that are considering trials. They obviously have all their own history with illegal drug use and what's illegal and what's legal and that kind of thing. Yeah. Thank you. Right there.
This is Morgan. So like you just said, how like other countries are like starting to think of trials and stuff. I mean, do you know, are we like
taking a step forward, trying it out, or is it totally closed-minded, like not even considering it?
It is, that's one, I expected in my interviews to hear that professors would say that, yeah, some people are talking about it, but here in the US, addiction treatment is like extremely regional. They both said that people really only focus on the treatments that are available, like even here in Minnesota. So they said that the majority of people in Minnesota that are even in the field may not even know about heroin-assisted treatment, much less like think it's a viable option for people in the US. But one point of interest, Canada is doing a study right now, and then I found one article that actually was located in the US, and that was a recommendation report in Baltimore from a guy out there. And one thing about Baltimore and the East Coast is that there's a huge like surge of heroin addiction out there right now. So
Do you think that the recent legalization of marijuana will put this on a path that would make it more acceptable?
yeah, I asked one of the interviewees that, and she said that that's helping to change attitudes towards this, but she said one thing that I thought was really interesting, what she thought was changing attitudes towards just drug addiction in general, was something that's happening on the federal level where they're starting to have diversion courts. So people that are up for like drug felonies or drug charges, they won't go to just a normal circuit court judge now, they'll go to like a drug court judge, and that court is conversant with like all of the possible treatment options, all of the, you know, punishment and time and that kind of thing. And that's a major shift in thinking about addiction, thinking that, okay, you can't just lock someone up in jail and expect them to get better and not repeat. You have to offer them treatment. So she said that she thought that that was actually contributing more in terms of a change of attitude that might help heroin-assisted treatment. But as of right now, nobody's really talking about it, so it's all very hypothetical.
I think